Hello and welcome to April's edition of the Leading Female Executive Monthly Discussion. We are so glad to have you joining us today. Do pop yourselves in the comments, say hello, say where you're from. We'd love to know. We always do this session live because we like to have that interaction from you as the audience. Whether you have questions, whether you have your own contributions, we would love to hear and see them. So please do pop those in the comment section today. Now, we are talking today all about digitalization, certainly a topic that has been hot for many a moon, but we wanted to spend this month having a bit of a deep dive into those digitalization dreams. It's always good to dream, and it's something that we're going to be encouraging you all to do today. Now, our panel is a little bit smaller in numbers today. April is a very busy month for our amazing female cohort we have here at Business of Data and Cranium. However, the quantity may be reduced, but the quality most certainly is not. So joining me on stage today is the lovely Mina Carhart and Wendy Gilbert. Thank you both for joining me. As I say, April is an incredibly busy month for us all. So by way of an introduction, Mina, if you wouldn't mind kicking off first.
Yes, so great to be here, and my pleasure always. So my name is Minna. I currently work as a data strategy consultant for a mid-sized consultancy firm, Solita. We are based in Finland, in Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and a couple of other countries. I'm still fairly new for Solita, so I've only worked there for 3 months. Before moving into the consultancy field, I worked 4 years for Finnair, leading the data strategy and building the capabilities for data analytics there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mina. And Wendy, a very special welcome to you as well, as this is your debut month. We're so glad that you could join us. If you could give the audience a quick 30-second intro.
Sure. I'm Wendy Gilbert. I'm the Deputy Director for Enterprise Business Intelligence at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We're based in Seattle. I'm based in Seattle, but of course the foundation has offices around the world. My team focuses on building up our enterprise data warehouse and enterprise business intelligence and self-service tools to support our users.
Amazing. So a wonderful two perspectives there to have on today's event. Now, remember, pop the thoughts and questions in the comments. I will be looking across them for the next 20 minutes or so. But as I mentioned there, we're talking about digitalization dreams. And I think the best place to start, as always, is positionality. Where are you on your journey to digitalization? Mina, I appreciate that your perspective will be one of many in the sense of who you're speaking to in the market right now and kind of an overview. And Wendy, I'm keen to deep dive for that you as well. But Mina, we'll go to you first. Where are you, or where have you been seeing people mostly on that journey to digitalization?
It was actually interesting to be speaking to various different global organizations, and I think there's something common for them. So they all have the vision and their strategy to become data driven. They do understand the value that you can create from data, how to turn the data into revenue. So they have that kind of a vision and mindset, and where they are now from the technology point of view, that many of them are actually now modernizing the ERPs and kind of those big systems that they use for their daily operations. And the other area that they are digitalizing is those kind of equipment or factories or those kind of facilities that they run on the daily basis. So I think that's mainly where I see many companies being at the moment.
That's really interesting. You're seeing that update for certain. And just seeing the comments come in here. Hello to Francesca, Sharafat, Amarandene. Lovely to have you joining us here today. And I'd love to know in the comments your own position on where you are in this digital journey. Wendy, how about yourself? When it comes to that digital journey, where would you say you are at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Just I tend to go back to what does it mean to be digitalized as well. And that when we think about, for the foundation in particular, a lot of our journey is not necessarily in digitalization as in moving from like a paper form or such, but from a centralization of BI and data warehousing, the thousands of spreadsheets that we have around the company, and how do we get people into more of a standard offering there, and standard and consistent offering there. And that's been one of our biggest focuses, is how do you support those needs that people have that are unique and specific to them, while also building out that thinking about the needs of the larger groups. And so
yeah, that's really interesting. It's certainly something I've heard a lot of, especially where you have, we always talk about silos, right? Every discussion we talk about breaking down silos and what that means for organizations, but you can also have silos of excellence as well, where you have one business unit that's really, really digital, really far front, and the rest may be kind of playing catch up to that. And it's kind of understanding what was their secret sauce to being that far ahead. What have they been able to do that perhaps the other units haven't been able to do? And kind of marrying and having that conversation between them as well. Hello to Georgia and Amos. I see you there in the comments. Thank you for joining us. Now, I wanted to title this discussion Digitalization Dreams, because I really do believe that the journey is only just beginning for us. As we know, COVID really accelerated that journey. Many now find themselves onto the path of digitalization, whether they like it or not. They have found themselves on this path now due to the pandemic. So really, where we now go from here is up to as many people can dream and dream as big as they can, essentially. So in that sphere, what direction and what dream do you have for your own digitalization, and what are you going to be doing to achieve that? Wendy, I'll come to you first.
yes, one of our biggest focuses right now is in trying to better understand where people want to go with data in particular, of course, because that's my focus. And what is it that they want to do? So whether that's, we have different needs across the foundation, whether that's specific to a grant, whether that's specific to operations of grants. But what we're looking into, our biggest area of focus is building out that roadmap. What are we going to do this year? What are we going to do next year? Where can we get the biggest value add for our partners and our customers? And I think it's really easy, especially for a company like the foundation, where we have so many different directions we could go. How do you decide which one's going to give you the biggest value? And for that, we lean very heavily on our business owners and our product owners to help set that direction of what should we build, not what we can build, because that's a lot of fun too, but what should we build? And that's where we're putting most of our energy right now, is what should we build? How should we build it? And then what are the biggest needs?
100%. And as I mentioned there, Wendy, it's really as big as you can dream, essentially, for so many of us, especially with an organization like yourselves. So how have you, just going to stay with you for a moment on that, how have you been bringing everyone around the table? What's that looked like in practice to ensure that everyone is kind of aiming in the right direction? Because as you say, it's such a big possibility, which is so exciting. But how do you keep everyone on that same path, in that same direction? Because as you say, there's going to be some people who are running ahead, some people walking, some who are crawling. How do you keep them at least facing the same direction?
Yes, and carefully. And I would say we don't try to take everybody with us in the journey. It's one of my favorite quotes is discipline at the core and freedom around the edges. And so there's quite a bit of discipline within our central program. And then we support self-serve. As I mentioned before, if people need to do their own thing, that's okay. But let's try to alleviate that when it doesn't make sense. So for us too, it's a big change management exercise that we have. We're trying to get those agents of change identified, of who can we bring along with us on the journey. Where do they sit within the company? How do we get them to be our heroes within the work that we're trying to do, and then have them help us with that messaging. And so that's been a big driver for us and a big focus for the last few weeks or few months, really, is how do we find those people, identify them, and get that news and information out there.
I love that. I love that. And there's just that element of honesty, I think, in that approach as well. As you say, you're not going to bring everyone with you. So how do you identify those champions? And you know, as I say, that honesty behind the fact that not everyone's going to be part of that mission as well. So Sherifat says there in the comments, my current client is building a nuclear plant, so still early days. I think the maturity is a spectrum across different industries. Very, very good point here. Books for joining us. Lovely to see you there in the comments. We have had a question come in, but I'm just going to go quickly to Mina there. When it comes to that digitalization journey, where do you want to be heading, or where do you think that organizations should be looking towards their destination?
I would say that, and we're talking about dreams, is that I would really like to build up that co-creation and collaboration across units. So kind of bringing the business and data and technology closer together. And I still think that many organizations are working in silos, so that there is certain levels of collaboration, but still the data people and the technology people and the business people are sitting in different teams, which is then unfortunately also impacting how well they communicate to each other, and building that common language, the data literacy across the organization, and bringing people close to working together is kind of my dream. And that's also something I'm having chance to work on now. So I've been actually participating in several trainings where I have the opportunity to raise the awareness and educate the different organizations on recognizing and being able to read and write and communicate with data, and building that data literacy that helps the collaboration.
Yeah, language front of mind for so many of us. In fact, just before going live, my colleagues and I were having a laugh about an acronym within the organisation that we use that none of us actually really understood what the we knew what it meant, but we didn't know what the individual words were, because people just use it so colloquially. And I think in the data space we have that, right. Not only do we have the industry specific knowledge of different words that are used in the healthcare industry versus financial services, but then there's the data language on top of that, to the point where that element of literacy, you do need to be able to say, right, are we all speaking the same language? Are we all meaning the same things before you can even get across the meaning? It's a case of that of what you're trying to communicate. So, and asks, what is the biggest challenge you perceive in the data acquisition and monetization process, if you experience any challenges? Well, I'm sure that there are challenges in this space for sure, but Georgia, thank you so much for asking that question. And it does directly relate into the digitalization, right? Because there are certain kind of offshoots for data value. That is the topic of the moment, really, is how do you stretch that value? You could be going down the monetization route of that data. I'm not sure how much that relates to both of you, but I'll ask it regardless. Wendy, what's your thoughts on George's question there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and it's topical these days, especially for me. It's a whole lot about privacy and ethics. In that, I think that for me, when it comes to acquisition and monetization, to me, it's no longer a tech problem. That we have the technology, we have the solutions, we know how to acquire data, we know how to report on it. It's really about should we and can we. So from a privacy perspective, just because we have the data for a particular use case doesn't mean that we can use it for other use cases. And should we have it in the first place? And then should we use it for the case that we're trying to use it for? And that's a slippery slope. It's something that companies that I've worked with in the past, so when I was in the for-profit world, it was always a challenge, in that we can do some amazing marketing. We can personalize our websites. We can do so much, but we shouldn't. And that icky factor is there, the legal and ethics, and just making sure that your customers are comfortable. And then at the foundation, there's a whole lot of grant information that we acquire, and we need to make sure that we're respecting privacy, that we're taking care of our grantees. And so I think, to me, that's the biggest challenge today, that it's moved past the tech issue and more about ethics and proper use of data.
Really, really interesting. I'll just stay with you on that one, Wendy. We were at the CDO UK conference only in March recently, and we were talking about this very similar topic around ethics and transparency and privacy. And one of the panelists looked up and said, the data people are pushing this as the agenda, but not many other people are. The customers, they're starting to make noise, but it's certainly not at the level of kind of campaigning for this level of ethics, in a sense of really understanding that world. So for it to remain at the top of the agenda, and for it to remain conscious of in business scenarios, what more do you think needs to be done so that this question of just because we can doesn't mean we should remains at the forefront of all data initiatives?
It's an interesting point. I think there is clamor amongst some users for data privacy and confidentiality. What I've read in the past, if you look into studies, that people are more willing, and some generations and some types of people are more likely to be comfortable with you sharing their data or having their data if there's something in it for them. And I count myself as one of those. I'm less careful about about protecting my personal information if it's useful for me for you to have it. But that being said, that's only some people, and others are very much more. My mother in particular is super, super careful about her data and who gets it. So I think that there is a desire from people to have their data protected, but it's varies. I would say also that the data people are asking for it primarily because we're the ones who have to make some of those decisions about whether something is possible or not possible, or whether we can or not. At Expedia and at the Gates Foundation, we have privacy officers whose job it is to help us make those decisions, and they definitely are involved and keen and careful with helping us. But it's a slippery slope, and what we used to worry about in my past lives is the first time you get in the newspaper and the headlines because you violated someone's privacy, then that's a terrible hit for the reputation of the company. So it's all good roses until then.
We absolutely, absolutely, and I think this is why this kind of side discussion was ongoing, because I think more and more businesses kind of need to be educated in how wrong this can go quite quickly and quite easily, and a case of how we as data leaders in the data community can empower businesses to kind of avoid those very bad news days, but more importantly, actually protecting the customers and consumers and patients' data as well, which is obviously the most important element. So just to remind you then, Georgia's question was, what are the biggest challenges perceiving to data acquisition and monetization process? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Wendy said earlier. So it's definitely a lot about the privacy and ethics and compliancy. But then the other side of things is overall to figure out what would be the value, how could one create new business and monetize the data. And it's not necessarily very easy. So for many organizations, I see that it's very challenging to figure out that what would really have value and to whom, who would be the potential customers, and what would that new business look like, and what part of the data would be valuable. So I think that's also something that is I would say in discussions and kind of ideas, but not that much really on reality yet.
Yeah, for sure. Now, an added element to this in digitalization dreams, what we're talking about here today, is, as I mentioned at the start there, the pandemic really kind of priming us up for this digital transformation that we've seen so many organizations go through. And of course, we're still very much in that era of transformation. I don't think we're kind of post yet for any stretch. So what does that mean for kind of the here and now? What are the big challenges that you're dealing with here and now, in a sense of, we can even go as far broad as the way that we're working, the hybrid model, how you're still enabling that to occur if you still need it to occur. Obviously, I'm trying to be sensitive of geographical locations. I know some people who are dialing in today, I do know where they are, and very much still in a lockdown kind of situation, versus here in the UK, very fortunately, feeling very free at the moment, touch wood, I should say. So yeah, where are you at the moment in this digital transformation in terms of the big challenges that you're dealing with now and in the future in any respect? Wendy, I'll go to you first.
If I speak for with my time specifically at the foundation, at the Gates Foundation, I've been here for 1.5 years, and I joined during COVID and have only been to the office a handful of times, haven't met most of the people that I work with. But like you, Catherine, we are coming out where Seattle is much more back to normal, not quite, but getting there. I think the hybrid work environment is going to be an interesting one. It's top of mind for all of us because we do go back into the office in a couple of weeks, 50%, and it's been top of mind for everyone. What does this mean for the meeting norms that we've established? And and in some ways, we definitely wouldn't want to see COVID repeated, but in some ways it has been really interesting. A huge number of our teammates are offshore in Mexico and the Philippines, and in a lot of ways with this full remote working environment, it's brought us closer to them because we're all remote, we're all in a similar circumstance. But as far as the work is involved for the foundation, it's a unique entity, and that a huge part of the foundation resources went toward COVID over the last couple of years. And so it's not changed necessarily my team, and that our focus is still on enterprise BI, but what that BI is has changed a bit, where we've been putting more energy toward COVID reporting and such. And the same when I was at Expedia before, and that when COVID hit for us at Expedia, the entire company changed direction pretty much overnight. And COVID reporting was really interesting, and that BI became front and center for months because all of the BI that we had known before that changed. And instead of building reports to show our sales, we were building reports to help people cancel their bookings. And so it was a drastically different world, and digitization took a completely different direction. And we didn't have the data, to the point that Georgia had made too on data acquisition and such. When I was at Expedia and our focus changed drastically, the data that we needed also changed. And so that was an interesting point for us that we just couldn't foresee.
Absolutely. Certainly tested data teams up and down, well, I was going to say up and down the country, but around the globe, the agility in which to turn on a dime, as you say, that change of reporting and change of tone and what is of value, right? For that team to be providing. Mina, I am appreciative of time. We always run out of time on this panel discussion. We're very ambitious with only half an hour. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say that the hybrid working model for me means actually that there are certain type of events that are in person, but mainly the work is done remotely. Just like Wendy said, that we have been used to now during this bit over 2 years to actually include people easier from various locations to the same teams and the same meetings. And I think that is very, very valuable, and we shouldn't lose that. So what I see that we tend to have sometimes workshops or get-togethers, something that is kind of a natural to be in the same physical location, but majority of the work is actually done remotely. So it doesn't really matter if somebody is at the office or at home. We'll always kind of meet through Teams or Zoom, and I think that's very, very valuable.
100%. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. A really very interesting discussion, and thank you to everyone in the comments there. It's been really interesting reading your thoughts, and Georgia there replying saying thank you so much and agree 100%. So hopefully we gave you some value there, Georgia. Thank you so much for asking your question. But yes, thank you both so much for joining us, and we look forward to catching up with you both again next month. But for now, that is where we will leave it. And looking ahead, we've got lots of exciting things going on here at the Business of Data and Corinium as a whole. So if you are looking for an event to attend, whether virtual or in person, please do check out Corinium Global Intelligence /events, and you will be able to find a whole host of events, no matter where you are, no matter what region that you are in. And we do hope to welcome you very, very soon to one of those. And of course, we do have our Business of Data podcast, our reports and articles over on the Business of Data platform as well. So make sure you're following the LinkedIn, where we are live at the moment, where you can stay up to date with all of that. But for now, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time.